um, I'm on the ferry. We can stop saying that there's no evidence against God. Sometimes I still hear that. I hear it often. And I think it's like a great thing to say as an atheist, and to show that we're not claiming to like have indisputable evidence against God. And it also helps us bring the focus to the question isn't about whether or not there's proof against God. The question is whether there is evidence for God. Um, and so that's great. That's great. And for most of our history, I mean, it was kind of impossible to have evidence against God. And in some ways, we still don't have evidence against God, but we have evidence against the idea of God. So suppose that you're, and it's not the problem of evil, which I think is fucking stupid, because simple response that any person can give an atheist who starts talking about the problem of evil: yo, we don't understand morality. Quite literally, yes, maybe that baby being blown up and going to heaven is maybe that baby blowing up and going to heaven is good. Yeah. Um, you're supposed to have faith that it's an all-knowing, loving God. So obviously, you know something either about morality or about the results of this explosion and the baby blowing up that you don't know. So no, so that's problem of evil is stupid. Sometimes religious people, their evidence would be, look around you, bro. Not just look around you, nature, that's stupid, but billions of people believe in this. It must be honest something. Like, what are the chances that there are people over there, and people over there that all believe in some kind of a God? Now, obviously, some nice evidence against a specific religion is, how is it that it's like only people over there, everybody who grows up over there believes in that religion? Okay, but anyway, so if someone the other day said to me, there's got to be something, because it's a pretty universal human experience. So there's got to be something that we're all sort of seeing or feeling. I said that's possible. Maybe there is something outside of us that we are all interacting with, and that's why we're so ready to believe, and why we have these stories. Alternatively, what if we're all members of the same species? Now, hear me out. What if it's not a thing outside that is the same? Because that was fucking stupid of you to say anyway, because it's represented in so many dramatically different ways with like fundamental differences. But what it has in common is power. An agent, some intelligence up there and down there, out there, whatever. So what if we're all members of the same species? Now, if we were all members of the same species, then we'd probably all be born with like 5 fingers. Probably all be born with like 2 arms, at least mostly. Probably be born with hair up here and very little hair here. Maybe some hair here and here. Probably all be capable of language. Again, mostly. We probably have hearts and brain stems and limbic systems. We'd probably all be able to see basically the same part of the visual spectrum. I mean, of the light spectrum. We'd probably all be able to hear the same range of frequencies. So we'd probably have like pretty similar brains. What if it's coming from inside the house? What if the fact that there are humans all over the world that at some point or another flirt with the idea of a God? What if it's not God that made contact? What if it's God that emerged? That wouldn't at all be shocking. That would make a ton of sense. Of course, every time you make this brain, it comes out with some sense of God. Now, could that be considered having a complete explanation for God's origins? Could that be considered counter evidence for the idea of God? I think so. I think so. If just imagine if we were able to like see that people who have certain activity in their brains are more likely to be religious. Out of body experiences, we were able to induce out of body experiences, the soul leaving the body. We were able to induce that by tickling the temporal parietal junction, TPJ, the temporal parietal junction. Huh. Well, that would dash our assumption that that out of body experience was like real, because the brain didn't leave the skull when it when the soul felt like it did. And why the fuck is it that when you stimulate here, that's how the soul like leaves or something? What? So so we do have evidence, I think, against the idea of God, because we have all the evidence we need for the idea of God. So we know where the idea of God comes from, and it comes from here. And we can see with all the different that there's always that thing in common, and then of course there are the specific stories that are added. There are things that almost all the stories have in common, but then there are also dramatic differences. So I don't think it was Shiva that presented himself uh, and started Christianity, for instance. There's some pretty fundamental differences there, but there are also some pretty fundamental similarities. So why? How come there are fundamental differences but not fundamental similarities? Because what if that root, that seed, is here,